Endings are one of the most important aspects of any kind of medium. Those final moments are the last memories we remember an adventure by. They are what stick with us the most once we are done playing, and can literally make or break a game in the worst or best case scenario, giving everything you have experienced a sense of meaning. We are quite used to seeing most endings end on a positive note. The good guys win to save the day. It's a trope that never gets old, and it clearly works. It's an easy way to get a sense of satisfaction to any kind of player or viewer, and we clearly love it for that. What is rare is to get an ending where the protagonists actually lose. It requires more work and planning, and it's overall just harder to achieve, while we still get that feeling of satisfaction. But what is even more odd is to get an ending where no clear black or white or right and wrong exist. Only the imperfection of the middle ground between both worlds, a grey ending, or in other words, a human one. This is the hardest kind of story to tell, and the hardest kind of ending to achieve. They create a disparity of opinions and a lot of discussion around them, and are quite risky to pull off. But most importantly, they make us question what we have just experienced, and whether what we consider to be right or wrong still remains the same way after it. That is the kind of ending The Last of Us presented to us over a decade ago, for example. We keep cheering for Joel to survive until we witness the final decision he makes. He's willing to condemn the whole of humanity just to save Ellie, lying to her about it along the process. As a third person, witnessing everything from behind, I think we can all agree that that can be seen as selfish and wrong. But is it really? Maybe it is selfish of him to make such a decision, but it's also selfish of us to disregard any of his own feelings and think he should do the opposite because it's just the right thing to do on the grand scale of things. People aren't robots, they are just humans with emotions and the good and bad that comes with it. So the real question is, would you have done any different in such a position? These questions of morality and the ambiguity of it all are why we remember The Last of Us as one of the best stories and endings in video game history. And that is exactly what the game I want to talk about achieves as well, Expedition 33. Clair Obscur presents us with a multitude of great and very human but also imperfect characters. Characters that will show clear strengths but also a lot of weaknesses. And characters that I already delved deeper in my other video, so feel free to watch it if you want, but in this video I want to focus on the real spotlights of this game with complete freedom, Maelle, Verso, and their respective endings. In a turn of events, we found out that these two are the actual protagonists of this whole story and the responsibles to give it closure in one way or another, with Maelle wanting to keep the canvas going while Verso wanting to end it all. This creates a lot of moral questions as to which ending is the good one and which one isn't, and while there is one of them that could be seen as the better outcome, both of them are just incredibly flawed, just like their own characters. So let's start with Maelle's ending. Here we see how Maelle's plan is to stay within the canvas until she dies. She just lied to her father about coming to the real world because she knows that coming back is to live a life of suffering with her own body, unable to talk, with breathing problems, and a disfigured face as well as a life without her brother. She would rather stay in the canvas and avoid all of those problems with fake solutions rather than finding a path forward, even if it's at the cost of her life, because a life outside the canvas is a life not worth living anymore from her perspective. This might actually look very extremist from our point of view, and it kinda is, but we need to put into consideration not only her situation, but also her age. When we are teenagers, we tend to make a bigger thing out of events that happen in our lives. We know so little of the world and even ourselves that it's easy to magnify any kind of feeling higher than usual. We're immature, even if we think otherwise, and we need to go through all of these experiences to grow from them. Maelle is 16 years old, and no matter how much more mature she is than people of similar age due to her past experiences, she still acts like a teenager with the good and bad aspects that comes with it. Something that we can clearly see through the actions she takes throughout the game. She wants to rush out things, she thinks she knows more than she actually does, she acts selfishly without putting too much thought into the consequences of said actions, even when she thinks she's doing the correct thing. She doesn't fully appreciate what she actually has, and most importantly, she won't be able to see a path forward when everything seems lost, even when the path is just in front of her. We have all been in situations like this at that age, and knowing that, it's easier to understand her point of view and the simple desperation that comes with it. Now, If we pick this ending, we will see her defeating Verso, having free way to do as she pleases with the canvas as the only paintress remaining. We will also witness Verso repeatedly say, "I don't want this life," as he fades away on Maelle's arms, but those words don't seem to reach her. She understands them but not the meaning behind them. She's so focused on her own pain that she cannot really empathize or understand anyone else's. After that, the scene then moves on to an auditorium where we see Maelle with everyone else alive, including Gustave, but everything feels odd and even creepy. We see them so happy, almost as if clueless as to what is actually happening, while Maelle just feels out of place, like she isn't supposed to be there. This sense of being oddly uncomfortable is something confirmed once we see the person coming to play, the very same Verso we just saw die. We see him sharing our feelings, being incredibly uncomfortable, and at odds with everything that is happening around him. He can't even look at Maelle's face, and that is when we understand his emotions and ours properly. This is just a puppet show at the service of a painter. They don't really have a real will or choice in their lives, since they can be brought back to life like nothing happened. Even the one choice that no one can take from you, which is your death, is actually not yours to make anymore. Everything feels meaningless, with the only thing that can bring him joy being the music he so much loved when he was alive. This is an incredibly gut-wrenching ending, where the very same life of pain Maelle was trying to avoid is now being forced upon Verso by her own selfishness, and where the rest just don't realize, or at least not yet, how messed up the whole situation is and how powerless they actually are. But for as dark as all of this looks and feels, the same question comes back to us. Would you have done any different if you were in the same situation and circumstances? Verso, on the other hand, goes through a different process. He knows the truth behind the canvas and the life within it since Expedition Zero set out to explore, and has since then changed sides multiple times. He initially joined his family and fake Renoir on their crusade to protect the paintress, thus protecting themselves from being erased, hurting the people he cared and loved in the process, and eventually regretting all of his actions, leaving his painted family side. But it was only a matter of time until reality caught up to him. After all of these years of living this life and going through all the decisions he had to make, what is the point of it all? What is the point in a life that he deems fake? A life that he has no real power over, and a life that he didn't choose to have, but one that he has no power to end either. It is a feeling that seems to lead him to resent the painters for all the choices he has had to make, and the people he has lost due to their own selfishness. A feeling that he is clearly at odds due to the fact that these very same painters are his real self family, but a feeling he lets slip every so often, especially at the end of the adventure with Maelle's powers awakened. This struggle to come to terms with your existence is the main topic that follows Verso around throughout the whole adventure, and despite looking like a very determined man at first glance, there is a clear doubt behind every decision he makes even after he has taken action. In the end, during this adventure, we see him join our quest to defeat the paintress, only to realize that the deed would bring us one step closer to erasing the whole canvas. Something Verso knew and kept to himself selfishly, but a decision that, in a life that felt meaningless, it actually gave him meaning, saving his real self-mother in the process at the cost of everyone else in this fake world. As to what comes after, he is clueless, aimless even, with only doubt, regret, and powerlessness seemingly being the only emotions remaining within him. The only thing he can do now is follow the awakened Maelle, or Alicia now around, with the hope of a better outcome, all the while he grieves and doubts himself. Act 3 is where we see this dubious and darker side of Verso appear more consistently. This is when we see him lose the remaining of his family and friends at the hands of a power he cannot even face. He shows more resentment towards the world and the painters, and in general, we see him more silent than usual, observing everything that happens around him without saying a word or taking real action as he did before, only thinking and questioning things for himself as he witnesses the events unfold. It's not until we reach the final battle and Verso sees Aline close to dying as she dives again inside the canvas that everything just made sense to him. There is no end to this pain. This is just a vicious cycle of selfishness from people who cannot face and overcome their loss, with the only outcome being their own inevitable demise. That is something Verso cannot allow, and for the first time, he has a clear purpose in this hollow and meaningless life he has been living, a decision that he's sure of and that no one can take away from him, not even his own doubts and regrets. That is when Verso crosses through the portal to find the part of the real Verso that still lingers and that seems to be in as much pain as our Verso is. In this crusade of the Desandra family to protect the canvas, they have only tarnished what remains of their son or brother, destroying his canvas and transforming it into an endless war which he has to bear witness while he is forced to keep on painting, something he didn't really enjoy in the first place. All the while, he sees his own family kill themselves on his name. He never wanted this, he never asked for anything like this, and yet they seem to be fighting for Verso's sake without really putting his own feelings into consideration, kind of ironic. That is why Painted Verso asks him if he's tired. They are both tired of this meaningless conflict, and it sounds sad, but in the end, the only person who actually asked Verso something as simple but also as powerful as "Are you okay?" was actually himself. Maelle then joins in to stop our Verso, thus wanting to continue this cycle of grieving, but she's defeated by him, who then proceeds to live together with his real self, and thus erases the whole canvas and finally puts an end to this cycle of pain. From the player's perspective, this might not look like a good ending either at first glance. We lost all the people and even the world that has been following us throughout our adventure, all because of Verso's desire to basically end it all. The pain of this world, his family's, and his own. As Verso himself says, we are all hypocrites, and his decisions are no different. This is indeed another selfish ending, but is it fully really? As we see in the other ending, life doesn't seem to have a real meaning anymore inside the canvas once everything is uncovered. The people we see other than Verso might not realize it yet, but they are completely powerless when faced with their maker. They might look like they have free will, but the moment Maelle doesn't like something, everything changes with a simple snap of her fingers pretty much. They are slaves with a fake freedom given to them, and it makes you wonder, if it's so simple to bring someone back from the dead, who is to say they can't bring these people back in another canvas? However it is, the little decisions and actual relevance from the rest of the party in those final moments of the story is a clear representation of how powerless they actually are and how meaningless their actual existence is. It might come as a shock to us, but in the end, they are just puppets created for the reason a painter gives them, and that's something Verso knows in both endings. What is in theory real though is his family, or his real Verso's family, and he knows that the only way to overcome the pain of loss they are feeling is by facing it head on. This ending might be a selfish one too, yes. After all, we are all selfish beings to a certain degree, but it's also a selfless one. Verso had a clear determination to stop this cycle, but even if he wanted it to stop, giving away his own life and memories with the people he loved must have been extremely tough, no matter how determined he is. But he does it so that his family can actually move on, completely erasing himself not only from this canvas, but any other that comes after. In the end, for as fake as Verso's existence could have been, he teaches everyone a very real lesson, and it's something that he tells to Maelle herself when she is defeated. For as dark, painful, and uncertain as the path ahead might seem to be, there is always a way out, a light at the end of the tunnel, and putting patches just to avoid looking at the problems won't fix them. We need to face those problems and emotions we're feeling to be able to overcome them, or at least find a way to live with them no matter how painful the process might be. Only then we will find a way to grow as individuals and be able to find a better place for us, a place where we can actually say we are happy perhaps, but in this specific case, a place where they can actually honor the memory of his lost family and live a life Verso would be proud of. And that is what we see at the very end. We see that moment of heavy pain and uncertainty that Maelle is feeling, but at the same time, for the first time, we see the whole family together, supporting each other and finally taking their first steps towards healing. None of those two endings can be easily categorized as good or bad. Yes, we can say that one is more positive than the other one in the long term, but both are far from being ideal resolutions. They are just incredibly grey endings that perfectly reflect the reality of who we are as humans, but also the world we live in. As I said at the start, for as much as we like to put things into a white or black box, The reality is that nothing as simple as that exists. We're imperfect, messy, chaotic, and far from these idealistic concepts. We all have moments we're proud of, times when we act with kindness, express gratitude, show joy, and simply behave with decency and compassion. But alongside those, we carry regrets, thoughts we cannot voice, and actions that others might be was wrong, outbursts of anger, selfish choices, or mistakes that unintentionally affect others. These are the kinds of beings we are, with the good and the bad that comes with it, and these are the characters that Expedition 33 presents to us. We might agree or disagree more with certain actions, but we can certainly relate to every single emotion at display. This to me is the best kind of ending a video game can have, and it's the best ending I have personally experienced, with some of the most real depictions of the duality of human nature, as well as existential topics about our own real lives, or at least that's what we think, right? That truly makes you wonder about multiple what-if scenarios and our own beliefs and ideas. But in the end, this is my personal take and view on the ending. So, now it's your turn. What did you think about it? What is your personal take on this ending? Did you like it? And did you like the game? Who is your favorite character? Let me know in the comments down below and I'll make sure to read it. And in the meantime, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.